Welcome to the West Orange Council of PTA's Board of Education Candidate Debate Night. If I could ask everyone to kindly silence or turn off your cell phones, we'd appreciate it. My name is Jennifer Tunnicliffe. I'm the president of the Council of PTAs this year, and our PTA debate has historically been one of the signature events that we have held as a service to our community. However, for the last few years, we've not had to host a debate because we've had no contested candidacy. This year, we are fortunate to have numerous talented candidates from which you can choose. Tonight's candidates will all have an opportunity to introduce themselves in a little bit, and we hope that you will all leave feeling more well prepared to cast your vote on November 8th. We are taking questions from the audience tonight, and you should have received a note card upon your arrival. We also have some up at the registration desk if you need some extras. So if you'd like to ask a question and you did not receive a note card, please flag someone down or get a card from the desk. After the candidates have made their opening statements, Lieta and Sue Palmucci will be walking around the room collecting your questions. Please be thoughtful and try not to ask something that has already been addressed through the regular questions that our moderator will be asking. And since I just want you also to note that because we have two current board members running for re-election, they're not able to comment on current employee issues. So please keep that in mind because we will not be able to ask those questions. Before we begin our proceedings, I'd like to take a few moments to thank some of the folks who've helped us with the organization of tonight's event. I'd like to thank Mr. Rutsky, our superintendent, for his support. I would also like to thank his assistant, Liz Hughes, Kathy McCormick, and our own Lieta Sutton, who collectively and collaboratively worked to find a date and a location for this event. If you don't think there's a lot going on in our school districts, it was quite a challenge for them, so we're grateful for their efforts. I would also like to thank Dr. Kimberly Mangarella, who's the assistant principal for curriculum operations and activities, and Kirk Roberts, our district media coordinator, for their support in helping us with setup and recording here in the LMC. Finally, I would like to thank all of the candidates who are participating in tonight's debate because they had to clear their calendars and ensure they could be here. So we truly appreciate all of you being able to make the commitment to be here tonight. For those of you who may not know what the West Orange Council of PTA is, we're comprised of West Orange PTA members. We're one of the only councils in the United States. Our primary objective as a council is advocacy work, to work collaboratively and advocate and address issues within our district on behalf of our parents and teachers in order to benefit all of our children here in the district. We are fortunate to have at our meetings representatives from the Board of Education, as well as our superintendent, which affords us the opportunity not only to learn firsthand about the challenges our district faces, but also how we can help. We also learn about where there are opportunities to engage families within our district in being greater advocates for their children. PTA membership is open to anyone. You do not have to be a parent to be involved. So please support your local PTA or your West Orange Council PTA. Your support helps us to continue to do the advocacy work that we work so hard on behalf of all of our 7,000 children within our district. I would now like to begin the proceedings for tonight with the posting of the colors conducted by members of our West Orange High School ROTC program, which will immediately be followed by the national anthem sung by sophomore Gabrielle Florendo. Would you all kindly rise for the posting of the colors?
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous flight o'er
Arch. Right. Turn. Forward. Arch. Forward. Fold.
Thank you to our ROTC members, Chase Gargiulo, Dominic Froyo, James Wicks, Vanessa Letman, and our talented singer, Gabrielle. We have some extraordinary students here in our district, don't we? Thank you. Without further ado, I would now like to introduce Diane Gallo from the League of Women Voters of our Summit branch, who will be conducting tonight's debate. Diane, we welcome you to West Orange.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out. Only a few more days, and then we'll know what's going on. Tonight's program follows the format that the League of Women Voters generally does, so that everyone has a chance to speak. Everyone has a chance to speak in a certain order. We do a round robin for the answering to the questions, but for the opening and closing statements, we draw lots. So the numbers were drawn, and the candidates that you see sitting here will speak in that order. There is a timekeeper in the first chair, and we ask the candidates to please pay attention. She will mark 30 seconds and 1 minute, and that's when you are supposed to stop. Some of the times will vary. So for the opening statements, the candidates each have 2 minutes to make that statement, but at the 30-second left mark, she will hold up the 30-second sign, and then at the end to stop. So, the candidates by lot. Going first to speak in the opening statement is Sharon Sherman.
Thank you. I would like to thank the West Orange Council of PTAs for putting together this Candidates Night event tonight. Thank you all for coming out to hear what we have to say. First, a little bit about myself. I grew up in Queens, New York. After graduating from Queens College with a degree in accounting, I went on to pursue my legal education at NYU and received both my law degree as well as a master in tax law. I was then a pension attorney at one of New York's largest firms for about 20 years. I was a pension attorney there, representing major corporate entities, doing a lot of negotiation with attorneys, with union representatives, and also handling many tax compliance issues. I decided to give up that legal career to pursue a passion, which was education. I went to Felician College, where I received my degree in K through 8, and have been a teacher now for 12 years, teaching 5th grade for 11, and now a STEM curriculum coordinator, as well as a teacher there. West Orange is a great town. It's a great place to live. My husband and I came here 27 years ago, and we've raised our 3 children here, and have been really, really thrilled to be part of West Orange. It's always been important to me to be involved in my children's education. I have served as president, treasurer, and board member of their school's PTAs. I've also chaired many school fundraising events and was a volunteer coach for one of the girls' basketball teams. As a teacher, I headed our faculty liaison committee, where I worked with both our administration and our teachers. I'm a passionate educator, and I believe that each child should be able to achieve their potential and should be given the opportunities to achieve their potential both academically and in extracurricular activities. I would love to be a part of building on the successes that have already happened here in West Orange and help build on the work that still needs to be done here in West Orange. Each of the candidates up here has so much to offer to our town. So truthfully, no matter who here wins, West Orange will be in good hands.
Thank you. And drawing slot number 2 is Stephen Cristiano.
Yes, my name is Steve Cristiano, and starting to repeat myself, this has been a long campaign. I've lived my entire life in West Orange. I'm married to my wife Adele, who's here tonight, for 29 years. We have 3 terrific daughters, all of whom graduated from West Orange High School. I've been a practicing attorney for 36 years. I have a bachelor's degree from Fordham University and a law degree from DePaul University in Chicago. Go Cubbies. For 28 years, I represented the West Orange Board of Education as its legal counsel. I currently work for an educational law firm in Westfield, Scarilla, Cornell, where we represent approximately 70 school districts. I have, as I said, lived my entire life in West Orange. I'm active in the community. I've been a member of the West Orange Lions Club for 30 years. I've been a member of Unico for 10 years. I'm active in my church, St. Joseph's Church. I serve currently on the Finance Council there. I love West Orange, and I want to contribute something to the town and to the school district I love. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 3 is Tanya Atterbury.
Thank you to the West Orange Council of PTAs and to the League of Women Voters for hosting tonight. I've lived in West Orange for the past 11 years with my husband Julius and 3 children. Our daughter is a West Orange High School graduate and is in her 4th year at Penn State, and our 2 boys attend Redwood, where I currently serve as the PTA president. My introduction to motherhood was unplanned. I was a young, single professional working on an out-of-town audit and returned home to discover that I had a 6-month-old niece that no one in my family had been aware of. Despite my fears and unpreparedness, I did not hesitate, as there was a child in need and I had the ability to help, and once I held her in my arms for the first time, we began our mother-daughter journey, where at times I've been at odds with family members, but always advocating for her safety and what was in her best interest. My second go-round with motherhood was planned, or at least it began that way. My son was born 3 months premature, weighing 1 pound 15 ounces and not breathing on his own. After 75 days in the NICU, multiple eye surgeries to save any vision in his right eye, at the age of 3, he was diagnosed on the autism spectrum. He attended the preschool at Montclair State, where our inclusion journey began. My son played a key role in the relationship that Montclair State has with West Orange School District today. He initially was not welcomed with open arms at Redwood, but with perseverance and advocacy, I have worked together with the administration, child study team, and teachers, and I'm happy to say he has attended grades K through 4 at Redwood, where currently 5 out of 6 grades have co-teaching inclusion classrooms. My third child's entrance into the world was a lot less eventful than the others, but certainly doesn't diminish the joy and completion that he brings to our family. I am so proud of all of them for what they have already and will continue to accomplish. My experiences advocating for my own children have helped me to discover a passion for all children, both current and future, to have access to quality public education in West Orange schools that meet their diverse needs. This passion, partnered with my ability to work together with others and my professional financial leadership experience, makes me the candidate who will make objective, educated, and practical decisions to achieve educational success for all of our students.
Thank you. And now Mark Robertson.
First, I want to thank the West Orange Council of PTAs and the League of Women Voters for giving us this opportunity. I've spent a lot of my life dedicated to education and to kids. I've tutored, I've coached over many, many, many years. In West Orange, I've been a scout leader for over a decade. I've coached basketball, I've coached soccer, not quite as well, but I've been dedicated to our kids and to our families in multiple ways. My journey to the board began as a parent advocate, advocating for children, advocating for parents, and advocating for teachers. Originally, it was to drive improvement in performance at Edison Middle School, and we were successful in doing that. But it goes beyond that. I am still your advocate. I still focus on accountability, best practices in education, and giving our kids a competitive education, one that gives them, that endows them with the skills, the knowledge, and the experiences to succeed in a global economy. Those are my ABCs. And when it comes to advocacy, I see that as one of the most important things that I can do for kids and family. Now, my vision for our schools, beyond empowering our kids with their education, is to give parents a partnership that helps them to help their kids, to give teachers a voice, I mean a real voice, and involvement when there's big changes taking place, real involvement in change management, and the highest level of respect. To give our taxpayers the opportunity to see their property values go up from great schools and to get tax relief. And in the town where innovation lives, to give all of West Orange schools ranked in the top 25%, schools with code that are teaching code K-8, engineering, STEAM, and that become a beacon for progressive businesses and for aspirational families. That's what we can be. And we're on our way there, and with your help and keeping me on the board, I'll continue to be your advocate and to fight to make our schools the best possible schools that they can be. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Senator Mordecai.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you to the West Orange Council of PTAs for hosting, and thank you to all of you for being here. West Orange is a great place to live and raise a family. I have enjoyed living and raising my sons Nigel and Nicholas here. They both went through West Orange schools all the way through. We've lived here for over 20 years. I'm a very hard worker and a strong advocate for all students and stakeholders. I'm dedicated to student achievement and committed to our community. I am a legal assistant of over 30 years with a Bachelor of Science degree in Management from Rutgers, paralegal degree from Uppsala College, and a Business Administration Associate degree from Essex County College. I'm a former member of the PTAs of Washington, Pleasantdale, now Kelly School, Edison, and West Orange High School. I'm a founding member of PASS, current member of the West Orange African Heritage Organization, and former co-chair of its membership committee. I'm a member of SPAN, the NAACP League of Women Voters, among others. I'm also a former commissioner on the Human Relations Commission in West Orange and a volunteer at the Public Relations Commission. I believe in educating the whole student, and as such I support our fine arts and music and athletic programs. I've been a sports mom since the 2nd grade, as my sons have played team sports here for the West Orange Recreation Department, Mountaintop League, Edison, and West Orange High Schools. I am committed to student achievement, fiscal responsibility, accountability, transparency, and I have initiated and supported many board achievements: zero-based budgeting, refinancing our capital debt, moving our payroll in-house, an efficiency and feasibility study. We've increased the graduation rates, closed or narrowed the achievement gap in elementary schools, have put forward one-to-one devices for all students, smartboard in every classroom, and I could go on and on with all the successes that I've achieved on the board. I'm humbled and grateful for the opportunity to have served you and look forward to improving on the momentum achieved. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Christopher Diaz.
Good evening, and thank you to the West Orange Council of PTAs and the League of Women Voters, and to you for being here tonight. I'm Chris Diaz, and I'm asking for your vote for West Orange Board of Education. By quick way of introduction, I've been a West Orange resident since 2004. My daughter attends Edison Central 6, and she's here tonight. I've been a practicing attorney for 18 years. I specialize in insurance defense and have represented every major insurance carrier doing business in this state. My family and I are committed to West Orange. My wife and I brought the Bubbles for Autism program to West Orange 6 years ago, and it continues to help raise awareness for autism and funds for Autism New Jersey. We brought Girls on the Run to Redwood School and helped it flourish throughout our town. I'm the longest running class dad at Redwood School and the first chairman of the West Orange Redwood Monster Mash. That's who I am. But I'd like to tell you a little bit about what I've learned over the last few months during this campaign. In discussing our schools with the voters of this district, I've learned that West Orange is hungry for change. Our residents are tired of a board and its teachers at odds. They want to see morale restored, and so do I. Parents want to see our HIB policy strengthened. They want to address an actual district-wide homework policy and a common sense dress code. Our residents want clear and frequent communication from the Board of Education. They want to be included in the discussion. They, you, want a board that is proactive, not merely reactive. I hope you'll get to know me a little better tonight and give me the opportunity to be the voice for change on our Board of Education. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we move on to the second portion, which is a series of prepared questions prepared by the West Orange PTA Council. And the candidates will be speaking again in a round-robin fashion. The first line of speaking is just purely random. And then everyone will have a chance to go first, second, third, fourth, down the line. These questions are 1 minute to answer and 30 seconds to rebut if you wish. First question. What experience do you have with complicated budgets? When you are given a 400-page budget for the district, what will be your process to determine if it is a good budget for the system? And again, in no order, first to speak is Mr. Robertson.
When it comes to budget experience, having now gone through 3 budget cycles, I think I have lots of board experience. Also, I'm a certified in board governance, which includes the financial part of it. And I've managed and been responsible for the execution as well as budget management for many, many Fortune 500 clients. And just try to do that for Burger King in 35 markets. That's a lot of fun, let me tell you. Process to determine a good budget. Well, before I start paging through the 400 pages, I have input that leads to that budget. First, we have a zero-based budget process for each building and department. Then I'm looking at what are the strategic priorities based upon the goals we've established in the strategic plan, district goals, board goals, etc. And those goals and objectives are really what drive the budget. They become the strategic priorities, and everything should flow from there. In addition, we look at what's changed, what have the needs changed, how have our capabilities changed, and what changes do we need to make, and how we do budget and finance in order to address those changes. And this requires also communication with parents to hear from them, what do you need? From teachers, what do you need? And my time is up. Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be Christopher Diaz.
Thank you. So as a practicing attorney of 18 years, as I said, specializing in insurance defense, I've dealt with carriers who insure everything from mom and pop operations to Fortune 500 giants. I'm tasked with creating budgets for each and every file that I handle. And those budgets require me to project litigation costs, liability exposures, settlement values. The budgets get even more complicated when my clients go to trial. I utilize my experience and understanding of the law to tailor those budgets to my clients' individual needs. I would approach our budget in the same manner. I would be meticulous in reviewing our budget line by line, seeking out redundancies, unnecessary costs, and seeking the best possible prices from our vendors, and if necessary, renegotiating and discussing those prices with their competitors. I would be creative in seeking out grants and outside sources to help defray the costs to taxpayers. I would be guided by one overarching question: does this help provide for a superior academic experience for our children? Every decision would come back to that question, and if the answer is no, then that item is on the chopping block.
Thank you. Tanya Atterbury, please.
Budgets would be one of my favorite tasks of the job if elected to the Board of Education. Prior to my oldest son's birth, I was the Senior Vice President at Credit Suisse in the Financial Planning and Analysis Group. My group was responsible for working with the division heads to develop budgets for billions of dollars. Additionally, ongoing throughout the year, I managed the forecasting and budget to actual analysis for the firm. My process to determine if it is a good budget would be first to assess if it aligns resources with the goals that have been set for student achievement. Then I would take a line-by-line, bottoms-up approach to ensure that we are only budgeting what is needed for expenses and not just what we've spent in prior years. I believe that my expertise in this area would benefit the Board of Education in helping to make the difficult decisions in maintaining reasonable increases to taxpayers and an optimum education for our children.
Thank you. Sharon Sherman, please.
I'm good with numbers. I was a accounting major, passed my CPA exam, was a tax attorney. I'm used to looking at budgets. I'm used to looking at all kinds of financial statements. What's important is looking at every single expenditure and seeing, A, is it necessary? Is it doing and providing what we intend it to do and to provide? Is it necessary to achieve the goals of educating our kids? First thing I would really do is look at the budget and see the changes from a prior year. Are we spending money just because we're spending it? What are we changing? What are we looking for? We have to prioritize our expenditures. We have to see where we're getting our money. Is our revenue coming in only from taxpayer money, or are we getting grants? Are we getting money from other sources that we can? Spend what is needed, make sure that our expenditures are doing the job, and then also, since the budget comes out typically in March or April, if I am elected to the board, then I will be able to have some time before actually seeing the budget to have further insights to see what kind of expenditures make the most sense.
Thank you. Stephen Cristiano?
I'm not an accountant, I'm not a business person, but I can read numbers, and I've been around school budgets for a long time, even though I haven't participated directly in them. You have to understand we have a 2% cap. Ideally, I would like to be below cap. I don't want to sacrifice any classroom instruction, but I think there are areas that we can certainly pare down. And one of the areas I would look at very closely are administrative expenses. An example of that is the recent hiring of 4 assistant elementary school principals, where that comes to probably over $500,000 in salaries and benefits, and that's a fairly recent development with our district. I would have to look very closely at those positions and see if we're getting any type of service out of them, any meaningful contribution to the district. But I would look at administrative costs, and that would be one example. I think there are other areas we can certainly look at. I think a lot of times what drives school budgets is a feeling of wanting to keep up with the Joneses, and that's not the way to do things. School budgets are different than corporate budgets. There are certain areas that are important, and there are certain expenditures we have to do to stay. And my time is up.
Time's up. Yes, thank you. Senator Mordecai, please.
Thank you. As a Master Board member, I have attended many budget workshops held by the New Jersey School Board Association, and as the only candidate who's a certificated and Master Board member, I believe I'm fully qualified to review and scrutinize our budget. Several years in a row, we have kept the budget under the 2% cap, with quite a few years under 1%. I have also been a board member at my church, St. Luke's, and I've also handled the budget there, so I have quite a bit of experience doing that as well. What we do when we get a budget as a board, we have several workshops, and we don't start in March, actually, because we now have a zero-based budget system, which means we start at zero, and we determine whether or not there's wasteful spending, or whether or not there's been efficiencies, and we compare the projected budget to the actual spending, and we start from there. Each building submits a budget. Each building principal submits a budget for their building. Each department submits a budget. And that's all combined into the draft budget that we sit with other board members in the workshop and go over. And my time is up. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone care to rebut any of the comments that were just made? You have 30 seconds if you would like to do that. No? Okay. Question 2 from the PTA Council. With the current West Orange Education Association teacher contract still not happening, what negotiation skills can you bring to resolve these issues? Would you pursue the NJEA to make further concessions to benefits and salaries? What sacrifices must be made to balance the budget? And the first to speak, going around, will be Christopher Diaz.
Twice in a row, I feel honored. Again, I hate to continue to play the attorney card, but as a lawyer practicing for almost 2 decades, negotiation is my life. I've built a reputation in my field as an attorney who can close even the most difficult cases and persuade courts on the superior and the appellate level to see things my way. As to pursuing the NJEA to make further concessions, I think that our teachers would be open for discussion that would not only benefit their situation, but the taxpayers as well. Currently, as an outsider, looking in, not privy to all of the details, I've spoken with enough teachers to understand that I've never heard any substantial opposition to utilizing our state insurance plan. Many districts have embraced this, and this has lessened the impact of negative raises with teachers. To my knowledge, our district has also never seriously considered self-insurance, in whole or in part. There are districts that have saved millions for taxpayers by self-insuring. I think that if we're willing to explore these previously unexplored solutions, we won't have to talk about much in the way of sacrifice. Our board just has to have the courage to allow someone with new and fresh ideas to begin making those decisions on behalf of our community.
Thank you. Tanya Atterbury, please.
The negotiation skills that I bring to resolve the current WOEA contract negotiations is my ability to see the total picture, to truly listen and understand the position of the other side, and to find creative solutions that would bring us closer to be able to reach an agreement. With no real knowledge of which issues are causing the delays in resolution and what has been offered and or declined, it's hard to say what, if any, concessions I would make to benefits and salaries. It could be possible to offer a compromise. It is my understanding that the benefits plan offered includes a very low copay and low deductible. Perhaps an option would be to offer a lower cost benefits plan with moderate copay and deductible, and the Board of Education could pay a higher percentage of the cost of the plan. Not having enough information to do a thorough scrubbing of the budget, it is difficult to say where there are expenses that can be cut without sacrifices need to be made, but I'd like to see the board actively explore more grant opportunities to supplement the revenue stream.
Thank you. Sharon Sherman.
There has to be a successful resolution to the contract issue. There's no question about it. There are three competing elements. Our teachers deserve raises and they deserve good medical benefits. Our Board of Ed must produce an affordable budget. And our students deserve academic and extracurricular programming to be advanced and not cut. So the teachers do need a fair contract, but not everything is within the board's control. The state mandates a 2% cap on property taxes, and the cost of medical benefits is increasing at a rate closer to 10%. So while we can look for grant money and we can look for corporate sponsorship, the only real source of revenue is our real estate taxes. And as a board, we have our responsibility to our students, teachers, and taxpayers to work within our fiscal restraints. While it's not easy to say, it is easy to say, in practice it's not easy to do. The board and the teachers and the union must come to the table and give things up. No one is going to be happy with everything that they're going to get. That's not what negotiation is about. I've negotiated. I've represented employers. I've represented employees. In many corporate instances, whether it's steel workers, whether it's department store chains, whether it's airlines, etc. My time is up.
Thank you. Steve Cristiano, please.
Like Chris, I've been an attorney for a very long time, and every day of being an attorney is doing negotiating. I negotiate on behalf of my clients all the time. When you're in litigation and you're attempting to resolve that litigation, to settle a case, it's a negotiation between two sides, and you try to come to a fair settlement of your dispute. With the teacher's contract, I'm obviously not privy to exactly what's going on, but I'm going to take a wild guess. It's about salary and benefits. And you have to understand, in a realistic sense, all the districts in Essex County will settle their contracts, and they will have percentage increases for the teachers that are within a quarter point or whatever. It's not rocket science to settle a contract with the teachers. It will happen. I think it's gone on way too long here, though. I think that it's created a collateral damage to the district because of the way this has dragged on. But negotiation requires you to respect the other side, to understand that position, and my time is up.
Thank you. Senator Mordecai, please.
As a board member, there are many things I'm not able to say, but I will say this. I've been on the board for the last 6 years. I have negotiated 6 contracts. I'm not in the negotiations committee, but I've been a part of the negotiations. As a board, we sit together and we look at the previous contracts, and we see where we can make changes, and you come to the table and there's a discussion, and you figure out where their concessions can be made. I have to say though, Mr. Diaz, the board has thoroughly looked at many options. We were self-insured when I got on the board. We did look at the state health plan versus our current plan, and with the state health plan, we would be spending more than $2 million if we went with the state health plan. We have also aggressively sought other avenues. We hired a new broker this year. Typically, our benefits go up 14% every year, and with the new broker, we were able to bring that down to 8%. Thank you.
Mark Robertson, please.
I've been trained in corporate negotiations in different schools of thought, from hardball, which I don't espouse, to Getting to Yes by the Harvard Negotiation Project. And I've asked my colleagues to keep in mind that this is a helping, nurturing profession. So being a tough negotiator is not necessarily the same as being a good negotiator. Empathy is key to the whole process. The relationship's broken. That's like looking through a cracked lens. Everything is distorted, and that has a serious impact on getting to the serious questions of salary and benefits. Change management is broken. So as we're doing this, teachers are often still have thrust upon them new program executions that they didn't have enough input in. I guess imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. I've been talking about fund development for years now. Corporate sponsorships, grants, donations, and strategic partnerships to address budgetary needs. And I hear my colleagues are now talking about that as well, so maybe I'm influencing them. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone like to rebut any of the comments? Okay, let's start with Christopher and then Sharon.
Yes, so with regard to looking into the different options that have been on the table, the state plan is not substantially different from the current plan. At present, our board has moved from one broker to another, but in that time has allowed this entire contract negotiation to fester and be pushed into the public and be pushed into the media and be pushed into the open light, so that the teachers have been forced, their hand has been forced to act. And I just wonder why it has taken this long to consider the other options, to consider a second broker, to move from one to the next in order to determine a better price. You know, I just was on the hunt for health insurance for myself when I changed jobs. I interviewed 7 different brokers to find the right insurance plan for my family. Why couldn't the board do the same?
Thank you. Sherman, did you want to?
Yeah, just 2 points. You know, as far as shopping for brokers, it's still important. It doesn't matter if you've done that in the past. Just because you've done it in the past doesn't mean that you can't look at it again. So that's number 1. And number 2, Mark, you are right. You are the spokesperson out there for grants and for corporate funding, but it doesn't mean that it's only your idea. Okay?
Okay. Sharon Mordecai, go ahead. I'm sorry, Sandra, I apologize.
That's okay. We have looked at many things in the past, and this is not the first time we've changed brokers. I just wanted to add that. I also wanted to add that not everybody knows, but across the state of New Jersey, there's over 183 school districts that did not have a contract in December, and now that number is down to 141. We are not alone. It doesn't make it any better, but this is the general mood across the state right now. East Orange didn't have a contract for 3 years. They literally just settled, and so did Montclair. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes. The fundamental business issues are still being clouded by what I don't hear anybody else referring to, the relationship. Obviously, when 400 teachers show up in this boardroom on April 25th, and then again in September, and they're upset, they're angry, they're talking about not feeling respected. If you don't feel respected, if you don't feel listened to, it's very difficult to have a substantive conversation. So we have to address the relationship issue, even as we address the fundamental business issues.
Thank you. Anybody, we only get one rebuttal. Sorry. Anyone else? Okay. We'll move on to the third question. What are the factors on which you will base your decisions as a school board member? And first to speak would be Ms. Atterbury.
If elected, I will base my decisions on what is in the best interest of the students to allow them opportunities to achieve at their highest level. This, of course, should be balanced with an understanding that the board has an obligation to the taxpayers to spend wisely and not unnecessarily. I will ask questions and do independent research and analysis and not base decisions solely on the word of the administration or concerns brought by parents.
Thank you. Ms. Sherman?
The board is tasked with setting policy and evaluating and establishing its goals. It also has to adopt a fiscally sound budget. Then it has to oversee that the schools are being run well by the people, the administrators that it has hired. Working with constituents, the board needs to listen to the community to see what kind of programming they want and what they can afford. It also has to design a shared vision with its educators and the parents and the students in the school. But all the policy and goals need to be based on, number one, remembering that the key element is our children's education. Also, making sure that the schools continue to improve at all levels, in reading, in science, in math, in writing, all of the categories. We have to use technology in the classroom to make sure that our children are prepared for the future. And most importantly to me, we have to integrate extracurriculars to all of our students since it is part of the educational process.
Thank you. Mr. Cristiano?
Well, the main factor would be obviously what's best for the children of West Orange. But that has to be balanced with the concerns of the taxpayer. We can only, our budget is finite. There's only so much we can spend. We can always improve things, but I think we have an obligation to really deliver an education to our students in the most efficient way possible. And that should be the major concern when a board member makes any type of decision.
Thank you. Ms. Mordecai?
Sure. The mission of all boards of education is student achievement, ensuring that students have tools and resources that they need to be successful. But hand in hand with that is also student safety. I would also take a look at the facilities needs, any budgetary needs, and I would assess and evaluate, or rather I would instruct the administration to evaluate and assess whether or not the programs that we currently have are working and what changes can be made, and set the time frames for which to improve those. One thing that I don't think was discussed before, with all boards of ed, there's state mandates, and those state mandates most times are not funded. And we've been flat funded for several years for special education. I believe we still only get $4 or $5 million. So there are many things upon which I would base my decision as a school board member, and those are some of them, but I would also do my due diligence and research, and of course ask for backup from the administration to prove whatever they're requesting is something that we can actually afford given our restraints. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Robertson?
As Ms. Mordecai mentioned, the #1 priority for every board is student achievement. The 3 areas of governance are student achievement, legal, and financial governance. And, from a responsibility standpoint, we have to look at, well, I'll call these the power piece of management. It's performance, it's policy, and it's priorities. What are the strategic priorities? What policies do we have in place to address our current needs? What policies need to be developed? How are we performing against goals? We're supposed to be a data-driven board and looking at performance metrics, including feedback from the public. And last, after we've fulfilled our responsibility to our students, we also have to look at what is our responsibility towards our taxpayers. Now, part of the data that we're taking in, it's qualitative as well as quantitative. We need to listen to parents. We need to listen to taxpayers. We need to listen to our teachers. We need to listen to our stakeholders and target audiences and factor that in. So priorities, policies, performance, these are really the crux of the things that drive our decision, with student achievement being the highest priority.
Thank you. Mr. Diaz?
So for me, the overarching factor that I would base any decision on, it goes back to the same question, whether or not it is in the best interest of our students. For me, if that answer is ever no, it doesn't pass my test. I believe that a good board member, one who takes this role seriously, considers all the options available to make something that is in the best interest of our children a reality. When a board enacts a policy or changes an existing policy, like visitation or the rollout of honors, they shouldn't just do it. They should be acting in the best interest of all affected and actively seeking input from the community. Just as important, I would base my decisions on facts, not just the word of an administration. In my line of work, I research. I rely on law and statute, and that's why when the board tells you that aides have been cut from a classroom because of statutory compliance but can't cite the statute, you know that they're not asking the right questions. Our district expects us to do what's right for our students and to be tenacious about it and to ask those questions when necessary.
Thank you. Are there any rebuttals to these comments? Yes.
I think in West Orange too, and I think a lot of times boards of ed pay lip service to the taxpayers, especially in West Orange where our budget is supported by the taxpayers. I think 85% of our budget comes from local taxes, unlike other surrounding communities where they're basically state funded. You know, Orange, East Orange, Irvington, Newark, they're basically funded by state aid, very little from the local tax base. I think, especially as a suburban district, we have to keep in mind our taxpayers, and a lot of people are struggling out there, and a good portion of their tax bill is related to the schools, and I think we really have a special duty to them to watch what we spend very carefully.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to say anything? Go right ahead.
I just wanted to add, and I didn't do it in the last debate, my thanks to Mr. Cristiano for being our counsel and guidance on the Board of Education for the past 28 years, and also for your father's guidance on boards prior to that. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no more rebuttals, we move on to the next portion, which is the questions that you, the audience, have submitted, and I will. So these are questions from the audience. Oh, I think we have some more. Some more. Oh, gosh. I think there's. Oh, goodness. Well, we'll start with these and we'll move into the rest. Okay. These questions are, the answers to these questions are 1 minute, and then if there's a rebuttal, we'll just go down the line, and that is a 30-second rebuttal. The first person to speak will be Ms. Sherman. The question is, as the board elected to move the election to November and take the ability of the residents to vote, okay, that's not really a sentence, but anyway, would you support moving the election back to May and give the residents the ability to vote on the school budget and not the 2% cap? Okay.
One more time.
Yeah, one more time.
I got the first part of the question.
I know. Would you support moving the election back to May and give the residents the ability to vote on the school budget and not the 2% cap? I'm not exactly sure what that means.
Well, the 2% cap is
set
by Trenton. There's nothing that we can do about that. As far as moving the election for the school board back to May, absolutely not. I mean, we get the biggest turnout during a presidential election or an election for senators and congressmen. We've seen so much apathy in town when it comes to elections for you know, town boards, town councils. So I'm thrilled that this year the election has been moved and is on election day.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cristiano.
The election was in April, not May.
Same question.
But I would keep it in November. I remember for years and years and years the board was criticized for having a separate election in April, and we were spending money on that, and we finally moved the election to November, to the general election, and now some people don't like that either. The reason why West Orange and a lot of districts moved to November is to avoid having a budget vote in April, and as long as we stay under the 2% cap, there is no budget vote. But I would strongly support keeping the election in November.
Thank you. Senator Mordecai, please.
Mr. Cristiano is correct. The budget vote was in April. I was the only board member who voted no not to move the budget, not to move the election to November. And the reason I did that is because I thought that while the turnout is larger, I felt that the Board of Ed election would get lost in the national election. And also the fact that the Board of Ed election is nonpartisan and the November elections are typically partisan. I think an assessment needs to be made whether or not it costs more or less, because that was one of the arguments for moving it to November, that it costs less. And if you've received your ballot already for next week, you'll see that the Board of Ed candidates are lined up across with the partisan candidates. And in past years it was at the bottom right, now it's at the top right, right across from the Republicans or the Democrats. So we're lined up, which is unfortunate. So that makes it partisan now. Thank you.
Mr. Robertson.
I think that it's actually already been said. Keeping the elections in November maximizes the traffic, the number of people who actually come out to vote. It maximizes the participation. That's very simple. In terms of, I wasn't really clear on the whole voting on the budget thing, but in terms of cap, we need to do our best not to spend cap at all, and to be more responsible towards the taxpayers and look at alternate and private funding sources.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Diaz.
Look around. It's a Thursday night. You're sitting in a high school library, listening to members of the potential Board of Education. You're engaged. This is fantastic. Why would we want to move it from November at all? In my conversations with voters during the course of this campaign, all I have heard is how thrilled people are to be able to decide national politics and local politics at the same time. I can't think of a better time to have this election.
Thank you. Ms. Atterbury?
I agree with keeping it in November. I do believe that there is a cost savings not having an additional election. And I also want to note that several of our polling places are schools. And so every time that there is an election, whether it be April or November, we are bringing people into our buildings while our children are attending school. So for their safety and security, I prefer November. And additionally, this election, for presidential elections, we close our schools down for the safety of our children. So I would definitely agree in having it just to be in November.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone wish to rebut any of the comments? Okay, next question. What are the ways in which you feel West Orange can and should address the differences in the elementary schools in terms of implementation of curriculum, resources, and disparity in test scores? And the first person to answer would be Mr. Cristiano.
Well, the curriculum is the same, or it should be the same in all the elementary schools. I don't know if it's an issue of curriculum. We have a different demographics in our elementary schools, and obviously some of these schools, some of these students need more support. I would be for intensifying any type of support we could give those students. There's only so much, though, that is able to be done. And I get back to something that I've always believed deeply, is that schools can only do so much for the students. It requires a partnership with the parents. If the parents are not on board, especially for students in elementary school, if parents are not on board with the schools, it's going to be much more difficult for your son or daughter to get an education. We rely on the parents to have the children in school on time, having homework done, ready to learn. If that doesn't happen, the schools can't make up that huge deficit.
Thank you. Ms. Mordecai?
Can you please repeat the question?
Sure.
Just want to make sure I follow that.
That's okay. What are the ways in which you feel West Orange can and should address the differences in the elementary schools in terms of implementation of curriculum, resources, and disparity in test scores?
There's several ways we can do that, but first we must start with making assessments of each schools. What happens is when our 7 elementary schools get to the Central 6 school, a lot of times you can, I've been told by many parents alike that they can tell which student came from which elementary school based on their strengths or their challenges. I believe that we should make sure that there are resources for the schools, as Mr. Cristiano said, where the demographics are different, such as the Title I schools, Hazel and Washington School, and also to sit down with the administration and go over the test scores and make sure that wherever there are weaknesses that we put resources in to improve them.
Thank you. Mr. Robertson.
We've been dancing around the same issues with Hazel and Washington's performance forever. Bottom line is we need to devote special resources to them. We need to do a better job of evaluating what the staff needs are that align with the student needs. Of our 44% kids on free, of our kids are on free and reduced lunch, and the largest percentage are at Washington and Hazel. Also, kids who are a large percentage of our ESL kids as well. So there are a number of things we could do. For instance, for ESL, we should be having ESL programs year-round for all kids and an online language lab. They need more support in that respect. Number two, tutors. Our kids need tutors, and the African Heritage Organization is the only one that really provides them. We need to reach out to area universities, put together a university network. They have many of the universities have give back or servant leadership as a requirement, and they also have students who are on federal aid who have to provide some sort of community service or give back. So tap into tutors and look at what other resources. If they have low reading scores, do we need a greater focus in terms of reading specialists in the building? So aligning the resources with the needs and devoting additional resources to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Diaz.
In our elementary schools, we should be providing the proper supports to both our gen ed, special ed, ESL students, every student. This requires, at all schools, engagement by principals with an eye towards professional development. We should be sharing information between our 7 different schools, and we should be working together, principals from each school, with respect to what works and what doesn't work in each school. And I would wholeheartedly agree that at our Title I schools at Hazel and Washington, our resources should be more directed to lifting those students up. For ESL, teaching to the language is an absolute example that has worked in other districts as well. Providing the necessary resources to those students in the form of academic supports and making certain that their test scores are given the proper attention.
Thank you. Ms. Atterbury?
I'm in agreement that I think that resources should go to our schools that need it in order for our children to be prepared. When we're going into Central 6, coming from 7 elementary schools, I don't believe that you should be able to tell a difference between where the children have come from. I think they all need to be prepared and to be ready to move on and participate at Central 6.
Thank you. Ms. Sherman?
I've met a lot of people over the last couple of months, a lot of parents from especially Washington and Hazel, who have been telling me about the disparity in the resources being provided to the schools. We need to treat all of our kids in town equally, just like it's been set up here. It doesn't matter if they're in a regular class, if they're in gifted and talented and honors, or if they're in spec ed. It also doesn't matter if they're in Mount Pleasant, if they're in Pleasantdale, if they're in St. Cloud, if they're in Hazel, or if they're in Washington. We need to devote the resources to bring our kids up to par wherever they are. In some cases, I've heard complaints about parents not receiving communications in their native language. They don't understand things that are coming home to them. Sure, we can't hit every single language, but we better get our communications home to parents in languages that the majority of the parents in the schools understand. We need to have our principals working together. They should be bringing together their ideas that help them in each of the schools in order to best help our kids. One more thing, we might be 7 schools within the West Orange community, but we are one West Orange.
Thank you. Anyone wish to rebut any of the comments? Ms. Mordecai, go ahead.
Thank you. It's tough because you run out of time up here. So for Hazel and Washington schools, because we saw that there was some need, this summer we actually put in place a summer program which helped children who needed a little help. So we haven't received the test scores as yet, but I'm looking forward to the report in October from the administration to see how our students well. Also in Hazel, we had the Hour of Code this year, and at Hazel and Washington School we had ESL nights for both students and for families, literacy nights as well as family nights. And because it's a Title I school and a significant portion of our kids are on free or reduced lunch, there's Title I and Title II funding that has funded those programs. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Roberts.
Yes, in reference to Mr. Cristiano talking about parent involvement, I think it's a given for all of us that parents need to be more involved. The more involved the parent, the more successful the child. But a lot of the parents at Washington and Hazel are working multiple jobs. We have to figure out more creative ways to reach them than putting a list of what parents should think about at the website, which doesn't always function appropriately either. And we need to just be a little bit more creative in our outreach, more active in our outreach, as well as possibly providing things like videos that they can watch in language. But we have to provide more support for these parents. They're working very hard. I've coached a lot of their kids. And I may call a mom and she's in the midst of doing work in a building somewhere and it's late night and I'm taking the kid home from basketball practice. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, next question. Last year, the district invited the public to participate in the strategic planning for our school district. Please give your assessment of the process and the outcome. And the first person to speak will be Ms. Mordecai.
Thank you. This is the second time that we have done a strategic planning process. The first time wasn't as inclusive. I actually, I think we did a better job this time around than the last time we did it, which was in 2010. Was it perfect this time? Absolutely not. It was tough because I don't know if we were weak on the communication or people were just not engaged. We didn't have a large turnout at 3 sessions. We had to reschedule one session due to weather. But I believe the parents who showed up, I think anywhere from 20 to 30 each session, gave us great input. And from that strategic session process, even though it wasn't perfect, we were able to craft our goals, which are the goals that the district has now adopted. In the past, the other session, we actually changed the goals. We modified quite a few of the goals from the last session. So this session, I think, was definitely more inclusive. And because a lot of stakeholders weren't present for the first one, it's tough for them to compare. But I remember this one is much more inclusive, although not perfect.
Thank you. Mr. Robertson.
The interaction that we had with parents in the community, this is a quantum leap above where we had been. And yet, from a process standpoint, it still falls short. I mean, the parents who came gave up a lot of time, but we can do better. One, from a communication standpoint, we didn't use all channels of communication or have the frequency of communication necessary to generate the type of involvement. Two, we put a survey online that doesn't qualify as a survey, 2 open-ended questions. When the surveys had the opportunity to give us a lot of data along a lot of different data points, and we didn't communicate the existence of that online very well at all. Number 3, we didn't give the parents any data during the actual orientation. We actually biased the orientation by talking more about, we have these 15 AP courses, all the wonderful things, but we didn't give them any performance data. So our parents did a great job of speaking from their own experiences, which did inform our insights a great deal. But had they had some other data on performance and some of the characteristics of our schools, I think that they could have come back with even more critical and more in-depth feedback than they did.
Thank you. Mr. Diaz.
My take on the strategic planning initiative, it was a very noble idea. It just did not include enough input from parents, students, and teachers. And that's where we fall short in terms of communication in this district. I would have liked to have seen a greater emphasis on evaluating or re-evaluating our HIB policy. I would have liked to have seen us address our dress code. Very glaringly ambiguous in the strategic planning was how we address the mental health and well-being of our students, many of whom feel overworked and overwhelmed at times. And I think that that is something that we probably could have given a greater focus to. Yes, it was a great idea. It is a great idea. But again, because of communication and because of not necessarily hitting the mark on a lot of important issues, I think it fell short.
Thank you. Ms. Atterbury?
I believe that any process that allows input from stakeholders is good. Most of those who came out were community members and parents, but I would have liked to have seen an avenue where we could have reached out more to the teachers for their input as well. But I believe that from the input that was provided, from everything that I saw, that we did do a very good job of taking everything that was said into consideration and including them into and developing them into goals.
Thank you. Ms. Sherman?
I think that the process was an improvement over where it was. I think reaching out to the residents, to the parents, to try to get information is extremely commendable. I agree that yes, we should have gotten further input from teachers also. But in looking at the strategic plan and looking at the goals that are set, I think that's fantastic. Because whenever you set goals, then all of a sudden you have to figure out the means to get those goals achieved. So yes, there are some shortcomings. Maybe we should have had some other goals that we would have liked to see as part of the process, but in the meantime, what we've got is great. I think it's a great start. We can start working towards satisfying these goals, and then we can continue with the process and come up with some more.
Thank you. Mr. Cristiano.
It's easier said than done, but I wish we could somehow cast a wider net to bring in more parents. I think with a lot of these types of things, you get the same small group of parents who participate. You're really not getting a broad view of what parents in the district want and what they feel the district should be doing. And I don't think there's any easy solution to that. I think, frankly, some parents don't want to be involved. You know, they think it's the school's responsibility to educate their children and just leave us out of it. But there's got to be a way, and I don't have any magic bullet. I think there's got to be some kind of way to bring a wider group of people into the process.
Thank you. Would anyone wish to rebut any of the comments? Go ahead.
Thank you. I'd just like to add that I went over all the results of the strategic planning process and actually looked at the attendance sheet. And for the first meeting, all board members were present, and then we excused ourselves so that people could speak freely. And I want to tell you, there were quite a few teachers who participated. Not a lot, but there were teachers there. So I just want to say thank you to all the teachers and all the parents who did participate in the strategic planning process.
Any other comments? Mr. Robertson, okay.
Yes. When we look at the number of parents who participate on our PTAs, a massive number, it dwarfs the number of people who showed up at the meetings. Once again, the folks who did show up provided us with a lot of great insights, but I would definitely disagree in terms of how much our parents are truly involved and engaged on all of our PTAs, and we need to do a better job of communicating with them and engaging with them to bring them to these important meetings and making sure they understand the ramifications of it. In terms of teachers, I do wish we had more teachers. When we did the superintendent search survey, about 250 teachers participated, and it would have been great to have their insights again. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Next question. The elementary schools are at capacity. What recommendation do you have pertaining to the increase of students as a result of the construction on Main Street? Where will these children go to school? And the first person to speak would be Mr. Robertson.
Thank you very much. Yeah, our elementary schools are swelling. We have trailers at 3 schools far, far beyond the 5-year limit that it's supposed to happen. And we have not only 330 apartments being built by PRISM, but we have on phase 2, 300 single-family owner-occupied homes, and then we have a development that's supposed to happen in the valley. Even if you use minimal, even if you lowball it, when you look at our fastest growing population being Hispanic families, which also have the largest family size, even though they've decreased in the average family size over the past 10 years, and you look at the Haitian population, you have to consider that our schools are going to be swelling at the seams with these things. What would I do? One, we need to work with the town council and lobby a little bit harder for them to focus on commercial versus residential development. 2, we need to look at alternative funding for the current schools. Get rid of the damn trailers. We need to have, I wouldn't mind seeing a wing built onto Gregory, Redwood, and Washington with Pfizer's name up there, with Ford's name up there. You know, learning labs built, or actual science labs that also function as classrooms. We need to think a little bit more creatively about engaging our strategic partnerships to address these issues.
Thank you. Mr. Diaz.
Yeah, the question is, where are these children going to go? And the fact is that we have had trailers at almost all of the elementary schools for as long as they have. That's disconcerting. Every year, it seems that we kick the can further down the road and don't address the funding necessary that we need to add on these wings that Mark is talking about to create more space for our students. And in actuality, I will agree. There needs to be an interaction between the board and the town council. That interaction actually should have happened already. It should have happened after the first time we kicked the can down the road, to determine funding sources to make our schools accommodating to the influx of students that we have coming down the road, as well as the students that are there at this point already.
Thank you. Ms. Atterbury?
Well, I'm happy to see that part of the strategic goals are that we did commission we are planning to commission a demographic study. I think we're making a lot of guesses and a lot of suppositions as to how many children are coming. I do agree that our schools are full to capacity, especially our elementary schools with the ones with trailers. But before we go making decisions on building new wings and all of that, I would like to see something, in writing from professionals as to our demographics and where we're going with the next 5 years with children and people moving in and out. And then I could basically base my decisions based off of that.
Thank you. Ms. Sherman?
I really hate talking after Mark because he usually hits a lot of these answers directly on the nail on the head. He's right. We need to work with the town council to talk about commercial, not residential building in town. The numbers that they're talking about from these residential, projects, I think that they're lowballing the numbers of people that are moving in. Okay, we're going to get hit with more, and we don't have the space for these kids. So the trailers, yeah, they need to go. So yes, we still need to figure out how we're going to build onto our schools. We need to figure out where we're going to get the money to do that. We need to get commercial realty into West Orange. We also have to go back and take a look. Are all the kids in our schools really West Orange residents? We started looking at that. Okay, that's a tough nut to crack, and it takes a lot of work. It might entail us actually following and see where kids live. But that's something that we've got to do, because we cannot afford any more kids coming into our schools.
Thank you. Mr. Cristiano?
I think before we do anything, we have to do a demographic study. But I'd be very surprised if we have this huge influx of kids. The Edison project is being advertised as luxury apartments. I don't see, if that's truly what it's going to be, I don't see a lot of school kids coming out of those apartments. I think they're trying to appeal to, for lack of a better word, a yuppie crowd that works in the city and has access to the jitney to get on a train to New York. I don't think those are the kinds of people that are going to have a lot of kids in the school system. But I would look at the other Essex County districts. If South Orange, Maplewood is crowded in its elementary schools, or Montclair, then I would say, yeah, that it's a real problem in West Orange. But if we're the only ones that have a crowded elementary schools, I would want to know why that is. And I would say maybe, to talk about to address what Sharon said, maybe some of these kids don't belong there, and they don't live in West Orange. And that, believe me, that's a pet peeve of mine.
Thank you. Ms. Mordecai?
I'm sorry, but we haven't kicked the can down the road. We have done demographic studies in the past. They weren't always conclusive or perfect, but we've done them. And what we had found over the years is that we did have some room in some of the schools. Are we crowded now? Absolutely, but not in every school. We always have a facilities issue in West Orange because we're landlocked for the most part. Preparing for the debate, I looked at some statistics. And 1930 coming all the way forward, at the highest point, West Orange grew 39% at one time, 14%, and it's now much lower. But with our ever-growing population, we do need to have a new updated demographic study, and that is actually one of the board goals this year. To Mrs. Sherman's point, and Mr. Cristiano's, about students not residing here. And Mr. Cristiano, you were also part of this. We did a re-registration of the students, and very aggressively, we do have people on staff who actually investigate, who get tips from within the school district, from residents as well, and they do investigate, follow kids who come off and on a bus, and we do have residency hearings. And I'm surprised, Mr. Cristiano, you forgot, because you've been at quite a few of these residency hearings with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone like to rebut? We'll start with Mr. and then we'll go to you, Chris. Go ahead.
Okay. Ms. Atterbury, yeah, I'm actually part of those who are working on the demographic study, SOW, right now. And I'm not just pulling my estimates out of the air. I actually do marketing and strategic planning. And I've looked at demographic movements in the area. Now, the study will go into much more depth than I could in my spare time. But 50 to 75%, just from talking with realtors in the area, 50 to 75% of those who have moved into West Orange within the past 2 years have either been young couples who want to have kids or couples that have small kids already. In my own neighborhood, just within a 2-block radius, there have been 7 families that moved in within this year. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Diaz, did you wish to rebut?
Yes.
Okay.
If we're not doing a conclusive demographic study, then what are we doing? The demographic study has been promised year after year, and the trailers sit there year after year, and our kids sit in the trailers year after year. The time to do that conclusive demographic study was years ago. And the phase 1 of the Edison project is the 1-bedroom luxury apartments, but the bigger ones are going to be coming very soon, and those units are going to be coming with children. So we better not be talking about doing a conclusive demographic study at that point. We better have begun doing this now and stop kicking that can further down the road.
Thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Sherman?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. I was not at all trying to say that the current board is not looking at residents or non-residents being in school. I think that the current board has, but it's a project that needs to be continued, and we can't let that fall by the wayside. As far as the statement that yuppies are moving here who are going to be traveling into New York City. I worked in New York City. I don't understand why I ever lived in West Orange with a commute to New York City. It's not easy, okay? I chose to stay in West Orange and give up my job in New York City. And as far as another issue, we know that what's happening with the town council and the senior advisory, et cetera, et cetera. We're possibly looking at losing a lot of seniors in town, and a lot of people have been living here where taxes have been going up and they need to get out of their homes. Who's going to move into their homes? Probably younger families with kids.
Thank you. Okay. Last one. Go ahead.
We did several studies that were conclusive. The last one wasn't conclusive.
You know what? One more? I'm sorry, you did speak. I didn't mark it down, and I apologize. Okay. Any others? Okay, let's move on to the next question. In your opinion, what has the district done well over the last 5 years, and what has it done poorly? And the first person to speak will be Mr. Diaz.
So what has our district done well in the last 5 years, and how can we improve on? What have we done poorly? Our district has made considerable strides, and it's important to recognize what's done right. We've increased children's access to technology. That's a great thing. We've provided them with smart boards, and we provided them with Chromebooks. We've developed a parent portal that allows parents to access what their children are doing when the children are in the classroom and how they're progressing. We've introduced STEM learning beginning in middle school. We've hired and kept some great administrators. Full-time Vice Principal Ms. Marti at Redwood is a shining example of that. Where have we gone wrong? Well, we provide this technology with no curriculum that teaches skills necessary to stay safe on the internet. I want to change that. We have allowed our teachers, despite their pleas, to go unheard. We allowed our superintendent to set a tone that severely impacted morale, and the board claimed to be unaware and later unwilling to intercede. We allowed a policy to be dictated without community outreach, input, and research and knowledge of the law. In short, what the district has done poorly is it's failed to communicate and it's failed to ask questions. The good news is now is the opportunity to change that.
Thank you. Ms. Atterbury?
I think our district, what our district has done well in the last 5 years is an increased focus on the elementary schools. New education programs have been introduced to further improve our strong elementary schools, such as departmentalization, new report card standards, changes to science and social studies curriculums, just to name a few. Strong elementary schools lead to strong middle schools, which lead to strong high schools. However, the implementation and rollout of these programs could have been improved upon. Staff and parent buy-in was not achieved. Opinions of the teachers who are on the ground and are impacted by these changes do not appear to have been incorporated. In addition, it seems as though a lot of change happened all at one time. I tell my PTA team that I am always open to thoughts, concerns, and ideas as long as the response is that we don't want to change because that is the way we've always done it. The administration should be open to these conversations with our teachers with the same caveat that I make to my PTA team. And if it takes a little longer to convince them and get their buy-in, then keep listening to their input rather than just moving forward. Teachers need to be brought into the program or curriculum to be their best selves and teach well.
Thank you. Ms. Sherman?
There are a lot of things that are going really well in town, especially over the last 5 years. Students are happy and they like school. We have good extracurricular activities. We have a strong PTA, and we have excellent K-5 programming. But there's a lot of areas where we can use a little bit more work. Our middle school needs improvement. We're losing some of our best kids to other institutions. We need better high school guidance for parents and for the students. We need better communication with teachers and the administration. We need to solicit teacher input for changes and improvements, and less of a top-down approach. We've started to increase technology in the classroom, but to me, smartboard in the classroom is not technology. Our younger kids need to learn keyboarding. Our middle schoolers need to learn how to research on a computer. Our older kids need to learn how to program the computers. This is where we are going in the future. The internet is not a passing fad. The board has made some advances on overcrowding. We have to continue and do more. And of course, we need to revamp the access to our gifted and talented and honors programs.
Thank you. Mr. Cristiano?
Things the district has done well. I think we've done pretty well with our facilities, with buildings, athletic fields. We have extensive co-curricular programs. We saw something here tonight, Junior ROTC, which has just been developed in the last couple of years. I think one thing the board did, and it was controversial at the time, was the Gregory School parking lot improvement with the bus drop-off. I think that's been a good thing. There are things the district has done well, but there's something huge that the district has not done well, and that's the elephant in the room. You have a school board who doesn't control its superintendent. And that's where all the problems start, with the teaching staff, with the employees. Until the board controls its employee and not the employee controlling the board, you're going to continue to have huge problems.
Thank you. Ms. Mordecai?
There are many things I believe the district has done well over the last 5 years. As been said before, one-to-one devices, an initiative of mine, I really advocated for that. We increased student achievement. Our graduation rate is up. We've increased professional development for faculty. We've maintained our buildings. We have energy efficient boilers, roofs. We've refinanced our capital debt. We've zero-based budgeting. We brought payroll in-house. We have a new purchase order system. We have implemented PowerSchool, Parent Portal, VersaTrans to link our transportation system, so we've had less transportation issues, despite what you see on Facebook. We don't govern on Facebook, and it's stuff we see a lot of complaints on Facebook, but with 7,000 students, we used to have complaints all the way through December, sometimes in January. We have done a lot better over the last few years. We have one-to-one Chromebooks, and we've kept the budget under 2% cap over the last few years. What we haven't done well, I believe, is communication, and we have expanded our communications platform to make that better. But we need to communicate better with the stakeholders and staff when new legislation affects their day-to-day.
Thank you.
My time's up.
Thank you. Mr. Robertson?
We've done a billion things well in 1 minute sign up. ROTC, digital devices, one-to-one, and we do teach keyboarding starting in 2nd grade. Repaired aspects of the language art curricula, improved science K-12, teacher professional development, engineering at the high school, cutting edge, AP expansion, highest numbers ever, computer science at the high school, IMS, IH, civics, and honors at the high school. What do we need to do better? Change management. Yes, we do need to manage the superintendent better, and I've given my input on that. Change management, Teachers aren't being involved enough in the actual change management. They're not being listened to and involved. So departmentalization was kind of shoved down their throats. Code K through 8. I've been an advocate for that for years. Need to have that. More avenues for parents and teachers to give feedback. Fixing honors criteria, getting rid of the test. HAP and G&T, fix that, get a model in legal compliance. We're supposed to have it K through 12, we don't. Vocabulary building, Latin and Greek roots, and online language labs were supposed to have already been rolled out, they have not been. Science K to 5 needs to be more engaging. Enrichment K to 8 began, but it has not followed through. Math 6 to 8. Early college and career development, special administration, sorry.
Time's up.
It's a long list of stuff we need to do.
Time is up. Does anyone wish to do any rebuttals? And please remember that you only get one rebuttal.
Come on now.
Yeah, that's one each. Just one, according to the rules I have. Anyway, we'll start at that end of the table. Ms. Sherman.
Keyboarding being taught in 2nd grade is already 2 grades too late. It should start in kindergarten and 1st grade.
Okay, down. Mr. Mordecai.
Yes. I just want to say the implementation of middle school honors is something that we've had challenges with. And going forward, we'll be putting together a committee to listen to stakeholders and evaluate and assess and see where improvements can be made. And I do believe we, as a superintendent is also a personnel member and staff, we cannot and should not comment on the superintendent as board members. But we do evaluate him every year, and we just finished a very thorough, over 2-month evaluation. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I guess I can comment because I'm not a board member yet, so I can comment all I want about the superintendent, right?
He's not a board member.
That is by far the biggest issue in this election, is this superintendent and how this board has failed to diligently supervise him. And all the problems with our staff and teachers start with the superintendent. And people can say, well, who cares? I mean, it's not affecting our kids. By the way, it is affecting the kids.
Okay, anyone else? Mr. Diaz.
It's a sad day when 400 teachers have to converge on a Board of Ed meeting wearing red to stand up and be heard, finally. It's even sadder day when a Board of Ed responds to those teachers and says, we weren't aware, and we hear you, and then nothing happens. We have failed our teachers. We have failed to address their concerns. We have failed to bring them into the conversation with the superintendent, with the administration, to include them and to make them feel as though they are part of this community when they are in fact one of the most important parts of this community. And that is something that we can do better.
Thank you. Okay, I think we have time
Can I
for
do one more rebuttal?
Did you speak yet? Can't keep track. Okay, go ahead.
No. Mr. Diaz, as a board member, you're not infallible. Yes, we should have had a better grasp in terms of knowing what's going on, but we have to work through the superintendent. We're not allowed to interfere in the day-to-day. So there are things that we could be doing. A personnel committee, for instance, so that we're having regular contact with the teachers and getting reports directly from them. A teacher's moment where they speak at board meetings, where it's their segment at the board meeting to talk about what their needs are. Climate surveys, which was recommended by the New Jersey School Board Association, so it's confidential and they can give us a wealth of confidential information. And there are a number of avenues that we can take, and I think we should take. So we've learned, at least I feel I've learned a lot from the experience. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think we have time for one more question. I'm actually going to combine 2 questions because they both deal with elementary schools, and I think they're easy enough to be answered as one question. It's a 2-part. Would you vote to keep teacher aides in kindergarten? And how do you feel about having assistant principals in the elementary schools? And the first person to speak will be Ms. Atterbury.
Okay, so with regard to kindergarten, yes, given the circumstances, I would vote to keep kindergarten aides in the kindergarten classrooms. Whether it be on a case-by-case basis where maybe all of the kindergarten classes share. Definitely there is a need for aides when the IEP or the 504s require it for special education. But I do believe that the statute that everyone's talking about and the rules really speak to When the class size is 25 students or over, it doesn't necessarily speak to under, so that is really a decision that is made within. And with regard to assistant principals, I can just only speak for my experiences at Redwood. We absolutely need our assistant principal. We have 580 students. We have one guidance counselor, and our child study teams are nowhere near the size of our middle schools, which have, and then our student enrollment at Redwood is actually higher than the middle schools, where they have 2 guidance counselors and larger child study teams. My time is up.
Thank you. Ms. Sherman?
I'm a very strong advocate of keeping aides in the kindergarten classrooms, whether it's because of class size in excess of 25 or less. These are little kids. I think our teachers need the extra pair of hands, whether it's a full-time aide or whether it's a part-time aide. In terms of assistant principals, when I was a kid and I went to school, we had 1 principal in our school and we had 700 kids in our school. I don't think that we need to spend those administrative expenses on assistant principals.
Okay, Mr. Cristiano.
Well, I've been clear about assistant principals. We have 4 right now. We have 7 elementary schools. It's only going to be a matter of time before we have 7 assistant principals in the 7 elementary schools. I can understand an assistant principal in an elementary school if you have an elementary school with like a K-8 configuration where there's a middle school component to it. I can understand having an assistant principal in an elementary school if you have just a large elementary school, and I'm talking like 600, 650 kids. Then maybe that would require another person there. But right now, I think this is something that we can't afford, and it's costing us big money. We're talking about administrators. That's $100K a year to start, plus benefits. With the aides in the kindergarten, the law is if you have more than 25, you have to have an aide. I wouldn't be opposed to having aides in the kindergarten with a smaller class size, depending on what the kindergarten is, what kind of children are there. If you have a large number of special ed students or 504 students, I could understand the need for an aide.
Thank you. Ms. Mordecai.
I vote yes for teachers' aides, but as it's been stated before, the law is if we have more than 25 students in a class, in an elementary class, then we would have to have an aide in the class, particularly if there's students in the class who have an IEP or a 504 plan. As to the assistant principals in elementary schools, we definitely need them. I hate to spend money. I was raised in a third world country, a developing country, and so money wasn't always available, so I'm a really cheap person. Ask my sons. But as to assistant principals in elementary schools, we tried it the other way. We actually had a shared assistant principal for a point in time. She was split between Gregory and Redwood. It didn't work. With the Teach New Jersey Act and all the evaluations that are involved, we really needed an assistant principal. For a new teacher, there are 2 long evaluations and 1 short. For a tenured teacher, there's 2 short evaluations and 1 long. This means excessive amount of paperwork for assistant principals. In addition, when you have Redwood and Gregory that are bursting at the seams, the principal is all over the place. So we definitely need an assistant principal. Sorry, Mr. Cristiano, I disagree with you on that one. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Robertson.
Assistant principals, we need them. It's not only the size of the student populations, and we're busted at the seams in several schools, it's also the complexity of them. When you have a lot of kids who aren't free and reduced lunch, you have a lot of kids that for various lifestyle reasons are not getting enough parental intervention. We need the assistant principals. Number 2, yes, the Marzano teacher evaluations are an absolute bear. And these mandates that have been pushed down on us by the state require a lot more administration. So the assistant principal is performing a couple of functions. One, a leadership one from an academic standpoint, and 2, an administrative support one that is much needed. Aides in kindergarten, all for it. But my understanding was that you have to have 25 or more, unless you have a child with an IEP and an aide has been assigned as part of that child's plan, that you have to have 25 kids or more. Kindergarten class sizes should be no more than like 15 to 18 kids per class. We need to work on class sizes. We need to work on, as well as providing teachers' aides whenever possible. But first we need to scale down what the kindergarten class sizes are. And more than that, it's not a class, it's a melee. It's very difficult to control. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Diaz.
I would absolutely vote for aides in kindergarten. When an aide is required as part of an IEP, which is a legally binding document, that goes without saying that aide has to be there. But as for aides that are not assigned as a result of an IEP, we've been told that kindergarten aides were removed because classes of less than 25 or less weren't required to have them by statute. I challenge anyone to cite that statute, line and verse. It doesn't exist. There is no such language. Assistant principals also can be invaluable. They need to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis, that's for sure. At Redwood, it works. It absolutely works. At other schools, maybe not. And this is where careful consideration and not rash decision-making comes into play. If a vice principal is warranted, then a school should have one.
Thank you. Would anyone wish to rebut? Ms. Ann.
I'll agree that it works, not based off of the free and reduced lunch or the other criteria that Mark brought up, but basically because in an elementary school you have children that are from age 5 to age 11. Various needs. Redwood has over 90 teachers, and as Ms. Mordecai pointed out, the tenured teachers required to be evaluated at least 2 times a year. Non-tenured teachers at least 3. These children, there's 580 of them. They need supervision.
Anyone else wish to speak? Mr. Robertson?
Ms. Atterbury, we're not just looking at Redwood, we're also looking at what happens in Washington, what happens at Hazel, what happens at other schools. And when you talk about the various needs, the needs brought on by the economics and the family dynamics are a key portion of that. So they are needed there for a number of reasons to address the various needs, as you put it, as well as what we spoke about earlier in terms of requirements that have been pushed down upon us by the state. But the economic needs are among those various needs.
Anyone else? No? Okay. I think I can squeeze in one more question. What are your thoughts on making Edison a 6, 7, 8 building? And the first person to speak will be Ms. Sherman.
You know, when I'm quiet, that means I'm still thinking about the answer. We do need another 6, 7, 8 building. But then again, we also need Edison to stay the way it is. Truthfully, I would prefer to keep Edison the way it is and figure out some other way of dealing with our middle school.
Okay, Mr. Cristiano.
I would stay with the Central 6 at Edison. I think I know the board tortured itself years ago when they devised this model, and I don't see a real reason why that needs to go back to what it was before, a standard middle school, 6, 7, and 8. I think the philosophy behind this was we wanted to bring all the kids in the district to one school. We were trying to stop this up the hill, down the hill mentality, and we wanted all the kids to be in one school so that they could get to know each other, become friends, and then they would be friends later on in high school. So I think it was a good idea, and I would support continuing with the Central 6.
Thank you. Ms. Mordecai.
I support the Central 6 model. As Mr. Cristiano said, there was a lot of torturing going on back then. I wasn't on the board at that time. Central 6 has been around for over 10 years now. I think it is time, though, however, to evaluate it, because the transportation cost is quite exorbitant, busing kids from all over town to Central 6. But I do support it in its current model, but not opposed to taking a look at it.
Thank you. Mr. Robertson.
The idea of Central 6 is a noble one, and it does bring everyone together for that period of time, and then for those who stay in our district, they reconvene once they're in high school. It's a wonderful idea. If, in fact, we were looking at redistricting to address the overcrowding in schools, 6, 7, and 8 doesn't make as much sense as turning both Roosevelt and Liberty into 6, 7, and 8, since they have more capacity and can accept more students, and then potentially turning Edison into an elementary school. But before we make that jump, we do need the demographic study. We do need to also talk to parents, listen to kids, and really explore what the benefits have been as to whether or not this for our community makes the most sense. So there are financial aspects to it with the busing. There are community dynamic aspects to it, which are very important. And then you also have the sheer numbers in terms of kids and the fact that the elementary schools are busting at the seams.
Thank you. Mr. Diaz.
In making a decision like that, first and foremost, I want the input of our parents. I want the input of our students. I tend to believe that most would agree that the Central 6 model is one that works. I believe we need a Central 6. It's a tremendous idea. All the same size fish in the same size pond. It provides an excellent opportunity for elementary school kids to learn the ins and outs of moving into a new environment and eventually moving on to high school. If you ask my 11-year-old who's here in the audience today, she's far more comfortable being around 6th graders for the beginning part of making and learning how to build on this transition before she moves on to Liberty.
Thank you. Ms. Atterbury.
Central 6 is actually the only school, the level of school in district that I have not been exposed to yet, but looking forward to it. I've heard nothing but wonderful things about Central 6 with regard to the social aspects and the protected environment that Mr. Diaz just spoke about. I would be open to listening and looking at it, taking a look, understanding why the decisions that were made several years ago, why they were made, making sure that they are still relevant and pertinent to making those decisions, looking at demographic studies, all of those things, and agreeing with Mr. Diaz that this is a decision that absolutely should not be made without going out to the community and getting everyone's input.
Thank you. Anyone wish to rebut any of the comments? No. Okay. Given the time, I think we should be moving on to the closing statements. These are the candidates speaking in the reverse order of the opening statements. They have 1.5 minutes, and they will watch the timekeepers. The first person to speak in the closing statements is Christopher Diaz.
Thank you again, West Orange, for coming out to this final Board of Education debate. Not going to rehash my bio, which was already told to you. Hey, did you know I'm a lawyer? Just in case. Instead, I'd like to tell you what I hope to accomplish. If elected, I want to help heal the rift between our teachers and our Board of Education. There are ways to do that beyond contract negotiation, which is also extraordinarily important. It involves not getting to the point where 400 teachers converge on a board meeting just to be heard. I want to bring creative solutions to our budget process. This involves saving us money by looking at options that haven't previously been examined. I discussed some of those tonight, our state plan, the possibility of self-insurance. I want to bring internet safety instruction to our schools beginning in kindergarten, going through 12th grade, STEM education, not beginning in 6th grade, beginning at the elementary level. I hope to reform and strengthen our HIB policy by bringing bullying experts who reside in our community to the table with parents, teachers, and students. I want to improve communications with parents and staff by being proactive instead of reactive. I want to address our middle school dress code because it's negatively and arbitrarily affecting our young girls. I want all of this because in my conversations with voters, this is what they've told me that they want. My campaign slogan has been, "We're in this together." The best part of the last few months have been meeting with voters and learning about what they hope and expect. And now it's time to make those things a reality by bringing in new and fresh ideas. I hope you'll vote for me on November 8th.
Thank you. Ms. Mordecai.
As Mr. Diaz says, I'm not going to rehash my bio either, but I'd just like to say what I'm going to do as well moving forward. As one of the board's liaisons to the town council, I'm committed to maximizing shared services with the municipality and other districts, as well as alternative revenue sources such as grants. And when I first came on the board, I pushed for grants as well, Mr. Robertson, and I continue to do so. As a member of the board's public relations and diversity committees, we have expanded our communications platform, and I want to continue working on that. We've added more diversity and cultural sensitivity trainings for all our faculty and staff. We've completed a diversity study. We've increased the number of administrators, faculty, and staff of color over the years. I would like to focus on raising the bar for all of our students, a transition college and career night for learning disabled students, increase revenue, assess and bring back students into the district to ensure that they attend their home school, support resources to our students in the middle. Many of our high school students should be college and career ready, as is mandated by the state of New Jersey. So we've expanded our college technical education programs, but we need to do more in that regard, and I am committed to that. I also am committed to working on the teacher's contract as well. A question earlier that we were asked were about the 5 most important things that we wanted to work on, and one of those things for me was the teacher's contract, as well as the demographic study. We have built a solid relationship over the years with our teachers, but as was stated earlier, there is more work to be done, and the superintendent has instructed the assistant superintendent to go to each of our 11 schools to sit, listen, and learn from all our faculty and staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Robertson.
We know that we need to work on more than a teacher's contract. We need to work on the relationship. I want you to consider re-electing me because over the past 3 years, I've been effective at bringing about change, and I can be effective at doing that again. Guidance is a district goal because I hammered away at bringing back information as to all the feedback from parents, that I received, putting that together and continue to force the issue until guidance was a district goal. When guided reading disappeared, I hammered away at that until we had guided reading back. Grammar is back. Grammar wasn't being formally taught for a long time. I can go through a long list, but the truth is that I'm asking you to re-elect me on the basis of my effectiveness in having driven results in curriculum and instruction, and in championing also looking at alternative funding and grants and sponsorships and that so that we can actually lower the tax levy. And last, I'm your advocate. I have been from the very beginning, and I remain that. I'm the only independent voice on the board and one of the few independent voices among the candidates. I'm here for you. And since 2013, my campaign's slogan has been "Together We Can," because it was together with you as a parents' coalition that we were able to drive change. It's together with your input that we will continue to drive change. Your input, your activism, your involvement. But I'm your advocate, I'm your voice, and I need you to re-elect me so I can continue to be that. Thank you.
Ms. Atterbury.
I believe that our Board of Education needs new leadership that is experienced in leading in our school community. Last year, I served on the Principal Search Committee and helped to transition and welcome him to the Redwood community. Additionally, I just completed a 2-year term as the treasurer of the West Orange Council of PTAs and a 1-year term as chair of the newly formed West Orange Special Education Parent Advisory Committee, and currently serve as the Redwood Parent Representative. As chair, I, along with other parents, moved forward the agenda to make the CPAC parent-led. I researched organizations in various districts and proposed a structure for the organization to have 2 representatives from each of the 11 schools to lead in advising the district on issues and programs involving special education. I support and agree that the district absolutely needs an advocacy group and would support the advisory group taking on that role or another group being formed. I have personally advocated for inclusion programs at Redwood and could provide valuable input to the board to help with the goal in focusing on special education to support and look at programs so that all of our children with special needs are met. I also know what it takes to get a middle-of-the-road student through high school and college ready. I personally understand the improvements needed in our guidance department. I have served on the Redwood PTA Executive Board for the last 4 years, first as treasurer and currently as PTA president. As PTA president, I have most enjoyed interactions with parents, administration, and district staff, hearing their thoughts and concerns about the issues that impact our children's educational success and advocating on their students' behalf. I have strong opinions, and I'm a passionate advocate for West Orange public education and welcome the opportunity to influence and make policies that impact the education of all of our students.
Thank you. Mr. Cristiano.
Yes, I want to thank the League of Women Voters and the Council of PTAs for hosting this debate, and I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. If you are happy with the way things are in our district, then you should vote to re-elect the incumbents. If you thought it was a wise choice to hire the current superintendent, the most important decision a Board of Education makes, as the incumbents did, then you should vote to re-elect the incumbents. If you are satisfied that the superintendent is doing a good job and that the board has diligently supervised his activities the last 2+ years, then you should vote to re-elect the incumbents. If you believe that no morale problem exists with our employees and that any discontent among them is simply related to a dispute over a labor contract, then you should vote to re-elect the incumbents. You should vote to re-elect the incumbents because I guarantee you nothing will change with any of this. It will continue to be business as usual, with the superintendent forging his own path and the board following closely behind. But if you think things can and should be better, that we need active leadership on the board, that we need to properly manage the superintendent, that we desperately need to again accord our teachers and employees the respect they deserve, then on Tuesday, November 8th, I ask that you vote for me.
Thank you. Ms. Sherman?
We've heard a lot of good things from a lot of good people tonight. And at the end of the day, we in West Orange will be fine with whoever you choose to fill the 2 spots that are available on the Board of Ed. We're all here with a common goal, and that is to educate our kids in a high-quality fashion. I have an unwavering commitment to educating all children. I believe in staff and parent involvement in decision-making, fiscal accountability, reducing overcrowding, treating teachers with respect, strengthening curriculum, and advancing our schools in 21st century learning and technology while simultaneously balancing the tax burden on residents. You see, it's all about putting our children first. I am committed to providing the best possible education for our children. I have a vision of high expectation for student achievement and a belief in a child's ability to learn and a passion for educating each child at his or her own level. As a teacher, I have witnessed the world of education through the eyes of the different type of student and the different type of teacher. I have also seen the world of education through the eyes of a parent who has always been a staunch advocate of high-quality education. I bring to the table a broad range of experiences from the financial world, the academic world, and my own family life that will enable me to continue to be a strong student advocate for the students and parents in the West Orange Public School community. There is a huge sense of satisfaction and excitement in playing a part in this important service to our community and helping our students succeed. After you heard our answers tonight, I hope I can earn your vote on Tuesday, November 8th. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to personally thank the candidates for their very thoughtful answers and for their courtesy in listening and speaking with each other. I'm going to turn the program back to Jennifer. And thank you all for coming out.
I just want to echo my thanks to Diane for moderating tonight. I think she did a great job. And on behalf of all of us at the West Orange Council of PTA, we hope tonight's debate helped you all feel a bit more informed and educated about the platforms of each of the candidates, and that you feel ready to prepare to cast your vote on November 8th. I have one quick final announcement. One of our other goals for the West Orange Council of PTA is our Reflections Art Program. It's an art program that's open to all of our children in the district, and we are having our art show on Saturday, December 3rd from 1:30 to 3:30 p.m. at the Liberty Middle School. So we invite you all to join us there and to come out and see some of the fabulous artwork that our children produce. And again, thank you to our candidates for being here tonight. Thank you to Diane, and we'll see you at the polls on November 8th. Have a good night.